Hi, you're listening to Dr. Heather Williamson, the Leadership Doc, host of Talking Leadership. I can be heard every Monday morning at 5:30 a.m. on ESPN 106.1. And it's where you'll learn the best leadership tips and practices to help your team soar. You can find me on my website, which is transformationgroupllc.com, or LinkedIn, Dr. Heather Williamson, and YouTube the same. So I am excited today because I am here with a friend of mine. We met a couple months ago, and we have actually been doing stuff together, and it's been really cool. And his name is Bill Lund. He is the president of SQL Data Partners. And welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Heather. Nice to be with you.
So let's share a little bit with those who are listening what SQL Data Partners is all about.
Excellent. So SQL Data Partners is ultimately a Microsoft partner and a data company. Our goal is to ease the pain of working with data so that our friends, our customers can do more. So they can do more with their data. We help companies maintain their SQL databases as a managed service provider. And we also help them visualize their data so they can have reports at their fingertips.
Mm-hmm. Which is all important in business, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. You want to know how your company's performing, and you want those metrics given to you when you want them.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So how would people find you?
They'd find us by going to our website, which is SQLDataPartners.com.
Well, that's pretty darn simple.
Yeah, that's easy enough.
All right. So I have actually worked with some clients who are data people or IT people, and they are a unique group of individuals, I have to say. And I am an extrovert by nature, not to the extreme.
Right.
So I have a quiet time, but I like to be able to read people. I mean, that tells me kind of what they're thinking in their heads. And when you have people who are IT, they don't show a lot of facial expressions, do they?
They don't.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
And so for someone who likes to read people, being a psychologist, leadership and organizational psychologist, it's a challenge. And they typically are introverted by nature.
Wow.
So, yeah. So how do you lead a team like that? What do you do?
So I think you're right. Sometimes you miss some of the facial cues that you get from maybe interacting with others, but there's also, it comes down to that individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting to know them a little bit, how to approach them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that sometimes they don't want to, like I know I can pick up the phone and just give you a call.
Right.
Right. Some people on our team, I would never do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would send them a message. Hey, I'd really like to chat with you. Would you have some time either later today or tomorrow? I offer that as a choice, because I know they may not be ready to engage right then.
Right.
They may need to say, hey, can we talk it to give them some advance notice? That seems to help.
Mm-hmm.
I think some other things is just taking that, just getting to know the individual, finding out what works. And sometimes that means you make some mistakes.
Yeah, well, none of us are perfect. And sometimes I always say leadership is not for the weak.
Right.
Because it can be a real challenge at times.
It can, but then you find out, okay, that's not going to help that person. So what can I do differently this next time?
Mm-hmm.
How can my approach be better? And I used to work with someone who, fantastic, one of the best people I've ever worked with.
Uh-huh.
But I learned that if I talked to her before 8:45, when she had her first Diet Coke,
not the cup of coffee,
not the Diet Coke, and she had settled in for the day, she wasn't going to engage, and we were going to have a productive conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't helping as a leader. I wasn't serving her or helping her.
Right.
But I knew if I waited, I'd sometimes send her a message, hey, do you have a minute to talk?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yeah, come on over.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd have this engagement. It would be fantastic.
Right.
But it was learning her, how to approach her.
Right. And I think that is so important as a leader. And I remember I've done a lot of assessments, and I use the DISC a lot in organizations. And the one thing that I think people have to understand is that when you're having a team meeting, just because your quiet person at the table isn't saying anything doesn't mean that they're agreeing to what's going on or the decisions that are being made. And I think it's so important that when you're in team meetings and you're handing out tasks or you are trying to get someone to make a decision, you have to recognize that this individual is not going to make the decision right then and there. They're going to have to process it, think about it.
Right.
And when it comes to that, you have to say, okay, Bill, let's talk about this, and later today or tomorrow after you've had time to think about it, and let me know what your thoughts are.
That's exactly, we do that.
Yeah.
We do that. Say, we'll cover a topic, we'll have this idea. Sometimes it'll just kind of come up. You know how things happen in conversation. We'll have a meeting, something will come up. Hey, what about this? We'll get to going, and then we'll say, let's stop for a minute. Let's marinate on this, right?
Yeah.
Let's let this kind of sink in, and then let's reconnect in 2 days. Let's talk about it. Let's bring this up again, and then see and then we come together with better ideas. And those that probably would have been quiet,
right?
Because it became so fast, right? We were talking about, oh yeah, we could do this, and there's excitement in the meeting, and then we stop and say, hey, let's let this marinate for a couple of days. Let's come back to it and revisit. And then it allows others to think through it,
right,
and come with their ideas.
Yeah, because they've got some great ideas.
Oh, fantastic!
Exactly.
Yes.
So, how do you know what a person's limits are?
That's a good question. You got me, Dr. Heather. I think it's getting to know them. We work with, as much as we work in teams, we work with individuals. And individuals we have to learn our people, know our people. I know for me, I had a team member, and she was just another fantastic worker.
Right.
She would overwork. She wouldn't stop until she had finished the day out. So sometimes I'd call her at 7:00 in the evening, and I'd say, hey, it's time for you to go home.
Right.
She said, well, Bill, I just have these 3 more things to get done. And I'm like, okay, what 3 things? So we'll talk through them a little bit. But I also learned that my calling her to tell her that I cared about the work she was doing.
Right.
There was no change in her opinion of whether or not to stay at work tonight. But I wanted to know that I cared about what she was doing. And I also cared about her and her family. I wanted her to go home.
Right.
And so it built a trust between us. And I learned that she didn't mind that call. I think she actually appreciated it. But it helped me understand how she functioned. She needed to finish those tasks, but yet she also needed to know her manager supported her. Cared about her.
And as an employee and a manager, reporting to somebody higher up, it is so important for that individual to really understand that, you, Bill, recognize the work that is being done. You recognize her need to finish tasks before she can close up shop.
Right.
And the fact that, hey, she's going to work some extra hours, but that, and she knows that that. And that's that support system that if something does happen, and she's like, all right, I'm done for the day. My brain needs to decompress,
right.
And I need to be able to clear stuff out in order to take a, fresh look at it the next day.
That's right.
Yeah. It's nice that you as a boss support your people that way. I think it's amazing and much needed in today's.
And that particular, she and I stay in touch. We've become friends. I haven't been her manager for 5 years, and yet we still stay in touch. And it's because we made that connection. I learned how to help her and how to support her, and she felt that.
So how do you make sure, because you've been in leadership for a while, how do you make sure that you've got the right person sitting on the bus?
That's a tough one. We talk about, there's a lot, you mentioned this, doing some screenings.
Right.
Those are very helpful, right? I know for me, when I was onboarding employees, one of the things I would try to find is, did they have the skills? A lot of times the resume might speak to that, but I was catching them sometimes on the second or third interview, and I'd really want to get to feel for, did they fit in with the culture of the organization?
Right.
If they came on board, would they feel comfortable doing some of the things that had to be done? And I felt like if they had that fit, they were going to be more successful than even if they had a ton of experience, they'd worked with a similar company in the past. They didn't have that same type of aptitude towards the job. One time I hired someone that had 0 experience in the industry, but she had so much people experience. And so it kind of took a chance, right?
Right.
But
you stepped outside your comfort zone.
I did.
Like, I'm going to we're going to see how this plays out.
Right. So I kind of looked at the resume and like, well, and then I met her,
Uh-huh.
and I saw people's skills immediately. I'm like, I think this is a good. Let's give this a go.
Right.
And she ended up just excelling, advancing in the company. Just amazing,
Mhm.
amazing person. Was one of my best hires. Right.
Oh,
you always
yeah.
want to talk about your best hires. I think you're asking me is what happens when you have you hire the wrong person.
Right.
And despite doing some assessments,
Mhm.
sometimes you do, because you
Yeah.
don't really know how they're going to perform or how they're going to fit into the culture of the company unless you get them in the seat.
Right. Because, you know, you and I both know at the interview, they're going to say all the right stuff because
That's
they
right.
want the job.
That's right.
So they're going to be on their toes. They're going to say, yes, I excel in this, or I'm going to be a great fit to the culture. I'm, you know, been working in a company that had a similar culture in the past. And a lot of times when you're doing reference checks, I know when I used to work for Philip Morris, they are only going to give you the time frame of when I worked. And
That's
that is
right.
it.
That's
and so
right.
you're not, you know, sometimes people will share, and then other companies, they're like, no, this is our policy. And so you're just going to have to go with the hope and a prayer that based on, you know, the resume, the interviews, the behavioral interviews, and,
Right.
you know, gut feeling, you know, is this going to be the person a right fit? Are they going to be a team player?
Are they going to be a team player? What was the phrase I used to hear is, were you hiring out of desperation or inspiration?
Mm-hmm.
And I got it, you know, it just, sometimes you do, you know, you have a spot to get filled.
Right.
And you might have 3 candidates and you didn't like any of the 3, but you also don't want to have to travel to such and such city to cover for that absence.
Right.
Right. And I know that was, I know I experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes that means you have to end up going back and repairing the damage
Mm-hmm.
of hiring the wrong person.
Exactly. I mean, there are so many people that will just hire because there is an emergency at that time.
Right.
And I need a body. I need a body.
Mm-hmm.
I'll worry about the effects later. Or you're hoping that they're going to just be able to fit in.
Right.
And then you have created this huge mistake.
Yes. And it's so much more work.
Yeah.
You think it's like, oh, I'm just filling in. It'd have been so much better just to continue to wait for the right person. I think hiring the right person is so important.
Right.
And taking the time. And if there is that, and I love that you said, I hire based on the answers to behavioral questions,
Mm-hmm.
the references, but also sometimes when you meet that person, you might say, you know, you've got all these great skills. I don't think you're going to fit in with our group.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's how you make that. Are they going to fit in with the culture, with the senior management,
Yeah.
with the team that exists there?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to make that factor. I know the times when I didn't also rely on my gut. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not just I think we oversimplify. We should say, I just do gut hiring. That's a bad idea.
That is a very bad
it's a very bad idea.
A lot of things could go wrong with that.
Oh yeah, but if everything lines up and you have a good connection with that person,
Mm-hmm.
I think those have been the much better hires.
So with those hires that you have, you know, done the research, you've made sure that they're going to be a good fit in the culture, a good fit with the other employees, because that's really important. Everybody has to be able to work together.
Right.
What successes, or, you know, what did you kind of look for that really said, yeah, this is going to be a good hire?
Well, so I think a couple of things. I remember one time I was trying to hire, and I was in a little bit of that desperation,
Mm-hmm.
but I had some great people to interview some really fantastic people. So it was just one good interview after another. But I met one person and I got a phone call from a client, and I actually had to say, this client is important. I need to stop the interview for a minute, take this call. I took the call and the interviewee said, oh, is that so-and-so? I said, yes, it was. She goes, I've worked with her before.
Oh, yeah.
She goes, tell me what's going on. I was able to explain in real time, right, what was going on. I said, tell me, if you were the manager down here, what would you do?
Mm-hmm.
She came out with, this, I would do this, this, and this, just right off the bat. She was the standout, right?
Yeah.
I hired her right away. But it was almost like there was this kind of this transparency, this honest moment with her, and then to see how she responded, because she knew I was under pressure if I was getting a call from the client,
right? And
just the way she responded. So I think sometimes if you can get people to be transparent, to be open and say what they're expecting, right? What they want to accomplish, what they're looking for, and if we can make that match,
right,
then it's a good fit.
Very good. That's a great idea. And great tips for those that are listening, because yeah, and you're not really sure, and the payback and the cost later down the road is going to be significant. So when you are actually making sure you're hiring the right people, do you look at LinkedIn as part of your hiring process?
Of course.
Of course I do.
Of course I look at LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is such a powerful tool, and it talks. I mean, a lot of times it's your resume. You know, a few years ago I applied for a job. I made it to like the 4th interview, and had never been asked for my resume because they just looked at my LinkedIn profile.
Right.
There was that. I think finally they said, "Oh, I don't think we have your resume." And I've been through 3 interviews. And like, hey, could you bring it next time you come over? And no, I think LinkedIn is powerful because you get to see it lists, and you also get to see, is someone savvy to LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
How many connections do they have? Are they trying to make connections? What industries have they worked in? How many mutual connections do you have? I think that kind of factors in as well.
Exactly.
So absolutely, I definitely look at LinkedIn all the time.
I remember when I was teaching leadership at BCU in the School of Business in that management department, and I was, teaching these guys leadership skills. I would always stress, I'm like, guys, watch what you put on social media. I said, because it is going to be there for the rest of your life. And whether you like it or not, the hiring manager and the HR team is going to be sifting through the resumes, and they're going to be looking, I think, for reasons of why not to hire you. Right. Because it'll dwindle down that list of applicants. And were just, one, I think, astounded. And then they felt like, why would they be looking at things like that? And I'm thinking, because this is going to reference who you are as a person.
Right. And I got to tell you, I passed over some resumes before based on the email address on the resume.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's some crazy names on there.
Oh.
And so, yeah, we just passed. I'm like, I'm not sure I want somebody that would put this email address on. It might have been their college email address,
right,
or their high school email address. Just kept it going. But a professional email with your name in there, maybe even a number or something, but just something looks professional. That does make a difference.
It does. That's crazy. That is crazy. So we are going to take a few minutes break. So stay with us, grab another cup of coffee, get that refill, and we will be right back. Okay, so this is where he's just going to do his little commercial.
Oh, okay.
Cool. You're doing great.
Oh, thanks.
And the red flags.
Yeah.
I don't even know how much time I have left because he's not in here. Buy-in. Okay, cool. All right. So they're going to do the break and then they'll start it back up.
Okay.
All right. So I never can remember what I'm going to say. All right. I am not Dr. Danny. I have to have my notes. All right. Welcome back to Talking Leadership with Dr. Heather Williamson, your leadership doc on ESPN 106.1. I am here with Bill Lund, president of SQL Data Partners. And we are talking today about making sure that you are hiring the right person. And we are talking about these kind of things because I work with leaders to help them overcome performance challenges by increasing their effectiveness, lowering their stress, and giving them more free time and higher profits by 20 to 30%. And this is really important as a leader because obviously revenue is important and you got to make sure that you got the right people on the team. So we were talking about red flags, and we were talking about what people put on social media is a possible red flag.
Sure.
What other red flags for those, bosses out there listening should they be looking out for?
Well, so there's a few things I always kind of look at. Anybody that over promises their abilities, or they tell you they're the best it's ever been.
Oh yeah.
They do a little Ricky Bobby on you.
Ricky Bobby.
I found that they are the absolute worst performers. Somebody that comes and says, I'm the best it's ever been, or they don't perform well. That's always there's I think confidence is a green flag.
Yeah.
Someone that used to be my fact. When I would take my interview notes after I do a series of interviews, I would look at one of the factors I would use to help qualify someone to move on to the next step would be confidence.
Right. And confidence is important, but not ego.
Not ego.
Yeah.
And not coming over the top. But
right.
I found that confidence was a differentiator from other candidates, someone that came in with confidence. So if someone did not come in with confidence, it became a red flag.
Right.
Because I would think, oh, they don't. I said, boy, they have some great skills. I like their personality, but boy, they just didn't have that confidence. And I'm going to ask them to take over this team.
Right. And how are they going to be confident in making decisions?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So confidence became, or lack of confidence became a red flag. Absolutely. I think there's some other things that would come out. When you talk about your former jobs in an interview, sometimes I would meet people, Dr. Heather, that were still angry about their old jobs.
Because they had a jerk boss.
And I did. And I'm sorry they had that. But to tell the company that you might be interested in working for about that experience, and to do so with gusto, or with that kind of anger, that coming forth. I remember interviews. We had this behavioral questions, right? Went through, tell me your experiences. Boy, it was just great. It was just a really good interview. I said, well, tell me, I see you worked somewhere for this many years. Why are you looking to make a change, right? You make change for different. Could you share why you're making a change?
Right.
Standard interview question, you might think.
Right.
Well, what came next was a bit of a tirade, and
wow,
I was surprised, but also it let me know that I don't know that that's a red flag.
That would be a major red flag, just because, is he going to respond the same way with somebody on your team that they're going to report to, right?
That's right. And I think for that, you're always looking for for people to express gratitude, appreciation for the lessons learned from previous jobs, right? Even if they had a bad experience, they could say, I had a bad experience here, but I still learned these things, right? I still learned kind of maybe what I don't want to see in my next job, right? That would be that would be a positive. I would like that, because then they're sharing with me lessons learned, and that's a very confident thing.
Yes, absolutely. So how do you get your employees to buy in to what you want them to do?
Well, I've been reading a couple different books, and I read there's a Disrupt HR here in Richmond, and Robin, I'll butcher her last name, but she gave a talk about one of the missing ingredients in business is love. And she talked about how important it is to have that in the workplace, to love your employees.
Right.
And doesn't mean anything outside of professional conduct, but it means if you have that attitude towards your employees. And I think that is something, one of her questions she said was, how can we have great results and have a good time doing this work? How can we have joy? That's what she said. How can we have great results and have joy in our work? I think those kind of questions are kind of like the Cy Wakeman, where she talks about what would look great here. Asking those questions. I asked that to one of our employees recently, and she stopped, and I was like, oh boy, did I go too far? And she stopped, and then she answered. She answered very profoundly. She shared. She was very transparent.
Right.
Well, this is what means a lot to me. This is what brings me joy in this part. I like doing this part. And so I saw that because I asked her the question, what would look great here? She bought in to what we were trying to accomplish.
And then you're being open and receptive to what is going through her mind to help her be happy working at the company. And
we put a lot of hours in work, right?
And
there's certain parts of work that some of it we have to slog through a little bit, but there's other parts that really do bring us joy. And learning what those parts are and trying to help. But I think asking those questions and getting buy-in from the team is powerful, and it makes a huge difference.
So I'm sure people love working for you.
I hope so.
I'm sure they do, because you're sounding like you're an amazing boss and an amazing leader of the organization.
Well, I think I've been able to work with some amazing people, and that makes it it makes it even better, right? When you're able to connect with people I mean, I think it's interesting when you do change and you see, who do you stay in touch with, right? I stayed in touch with the people that I got to serve, right? And that they had trust with me and I had trust with them. And those relationships have continued. And to me, that means so much to me.
So before we leave today, and I'm asked this question with everybody, what is the one tip that you would like to leave another leader who's listening that should be important as a boss? What's a leadership tip?
Is to get to know how to help motivate your team members, and each of them's going to be motivated different ways, but get to know them, and they're individuals, and if your job as a leader is to serve and support them, is learning how to do that. And I think that's the thing that has served me the most as a leader over the years.
Oh, amazing. Absolutely. You got to know your team.
That's right.
It's so important. So how do people get in touch with you again?
Well, they can catch up with me on our website at SQLDataPartners.com. You can catch me on Twitter. It's at Bill_Lund, or on LinkedIn, and it's the same, LinkedIn Bill_Lund.
There you go. So when you are, because you're IT and you are trying to, get new clients as well, what's your ideal client?
Ideal client are large companies, right? Distribution companies, manufacturing companies that deal with a lot of data. That's one of the areas that we help most. Companies have a lot of data. They either need some help managing that data, or they need some help visualizing it. We help those companies.
Awesome. Well, I am excited that you were my guest today and sharing your experience as a leader of your organization and sharing some tips and strategies that other leaders can listen to and implement as well within their businesses. So that is going to do it for us today. Thank you for listening to Talking Leadership with Dr. Heather, the Leadership Doc, on ESPN 106.1 FM. I'll be back behind the mic next Monday. So hopefully you will be listening and with your cup of coffee, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I look forward to seeing you. You can catch me on LinkedIn at Dr. Heather Williamson, on my website, which is transformationgroupllc.com, and on my YouTube channel as well, Dr. Heather Williamson. So until next time, have a great week.